Thank you, Bosco.
Yep.
Welcome to the FC80 Studio 1900 for another fire edition of Mike on the Mic. This is our first podcast of 2026.
No,
So,
no, it's not. Our first podcast.
for release today.
Okay, you're right.
Release today.
Recorded
today.
Yeah, right.
So I am Mike Ross, and I, along with our producer David Mackley, aka Bosco, who you just met, here's where we interview local movers, shakers, and policymakers about issues that matter to all of us, or at least some of us, and nothing is off limits. And we got a really great opening for 2026. But before we get there, our
Yes.
sponsor is
Yes.
back. So Bosco.
Yes. He's never left, but
He kind of did. I mean, he gave us like a little bit of money and then thought he was going to advertise forever, but he gave us more money.
yes.
So he's back. When you think of insurance,
Yes.
who do you think of?
Blue Ridge Risk Partners.
And who specifically at Blue Ridge Risk Partners do you think about?
Our good friend Jeb Keller.
Yes, indeed. Jeb has moved from practicing law to practicing insurance, and we love this man. So, but from captive insurance and alternative risk solutions for your business to health insurance for your family, Blue Ridge Risk Partners offers the products, expertise, and services of a top 10 insurance agency right here in Franklin County. Why I don't think they're number one, I don't know, but they're in the top 10. Friend of the podcast, Jeb Keller, is always happy to take your call. But Blue Ridge Risk Partners has been our agency for the last 40 years.
Ever.
And we have great. They are great. They provide great service, and we love those guys. And they have a great team. And Jeb, we're happy to have you back as our sponsor. So with that, we're going to move on and jump into our first recorded podcast of 2026, and I'm excited about this because we have with us a good friend, Jesse McCree, who is the CEO of the South Central Workforce Investment Board and SCPa Works, and he is the face of workforce development for South Central Pennsylvania, and there's nobody who is more knowledgeable on the issue than Jesse. And in the context of full disclosure, I've had the privilege of serving on his board for a number of years, and was actually part of the interview process that elevated Jesse from his previous position in the organization to CEO, and that was a decision that has really, we've reaped the rewards of that. So welcome.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. Thanks, David, for manning the controls.
Yep,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
So anyway, and you've made the trip down from Harrisburg today, and we appreciate that. So we're going to jump into all what's going on in the region, because we're fortunate to be in an area where our economy has been growing and it continues to be strong. Excuse me. And workforce development is always at the forefront of what we're trying, how we're trying to really support the growth and the location decisions that have taken place. But before we get into it, Jesse, again, welcome.
Yeah.
So you're not native to Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, so I grew up, we like to joke, last stop before Canada in Maine,
Okay.
just north of Bangor, Maine. That's where I grew up. So, it's a long ways away from a place where you can almost see the Mason-Dixon line.
So when did winter start?
Yeah, winter starts the day after Halloween.
Okay.
Yep. And,
All right.
and
So
we'll
November
get
1? I thought it might have been even earlier
Nope.
than that.
I remember growing up, we had a big snowstorm, 2.5 feet in mid-October,
Okay.
and April Fool's Day, we would have a couple feet of snow on the ground easily. So I played baseball growing up, and the baseball season up in Maine was
As well as like
April
like
15th
yeah.
to like May 15th.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was 4 weeks, and I struck out all the time. It didn't matter.
I mean,
1 month.
1 month, right? 1 month of strikeouts. But
So-
So I grew up in Maine. Actually, interestingly, I still have family up there. I love visiting, and it's great. The move to Pennsylvania feels like home now, which is, after being here 15 years, it's just been wonderful. Great community, great friends. Obviously, the work I love, and I've loved seeing this region grow. But so I grew up actually loving Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, if you'll remember the Civil War hero, right?
Yeah.
And so I've kind of taken the Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain career path, right? So I started at Bowdoin College up in Brunswick, Maine, which is where he
Was the
150
president.
years, he was the president, right?
Yep.
And so I idolized Chamberlain, right? So he was the president of my college, And so I was reading about him, biographies growing up. I was like, he made a
No,
name
our-
for himself
our-
in Central PA. So
Right.
I think
Yep.
I could
Our
too, right?
solicitor, Jack Sharp, went to your college.
Is that right, Bowdoin?
He's a graduate of
I
Bowdoin.
didn't realize that. Yeah, there's.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a small school. I think my graduating class was 500 people, right? So I mean, I think it's 2,000 students. So you don't make a lot of Bowdoin
Wow.
grads,
No
particularly down
kidding.
here in South Central PA.
Yeah.
So,
So,
yeah, so I moved down here 15 years ago, and this feels like home now. And so I think part of it too, honestly, was it's a beautiful state. The economic opportunities, the job opportunities weren't plentiful up there, and so making
yeah,
the
but
move down here was.
you went to Bowdoin, but then you got your MPA at Cornell, correct?
Yeah, so did a couple years in Cornell, and that was, Ithaca is a what do they say? Ithaca is gorgeous. It's
I've
beautiful
never
up
been
there.
to Ithaca, but
Yeah.
I understand it's one of the one of the great college towns in America.
Yeah, so Ithaca. So I'm someone can fact check me on this here. Are you gonna fact check this
No.
podcast here?
Nope.
Is that what we do?
No, you can say anything.
Say anything you want to.
Yeah.
Make up my own stats here.
Yeah.
And I think Ithaca as a town has the highest per capita, restaurants, right, in all of the country, because you have Ithaca and Cornell on either side of the town, and then this just idyllic college town that's right there, right? And so you have all of the amenities, and it's just an absolutely, it really is quintessential sort of Collegeville. So we loved our 2 years up there, yeah. So anyways, making it down here to Harrisburg, PA after
So
that.
what was your major at Bowdoin?
Yeah, so it's government and international relations was
Okay.
my major there.
Can
so-
you be like our ambassador. To
Yeah, so
Canada?
it was funny. I was telling this actually to my kids recently because I was lecturing them on history, as I'm wont to do at my age. And so I grew up wanting to be an NBA basketball player. Realized I didn't have the height or the talent, so that wasn't going to work out too well. Then wanted to be a lawyer, so that was when I landed at Bowdoin. I wanted to be a lawyer, so government relations, law, international politics, and wanted to do all of the UN stuff and all of the sort of international work at that level. Then realized I didn't want to be a lawyer, and I know a lot of great lawyers, but I didn't want to do that. So really, actually, the net of it all was left college like a lot of 21-year-olds, not really knowing what I wanted to do. Come from a family of people who've been in service and community service oriented roles. My uncle did the AmeriCorps, so my dad said, "Hey, do AmeriCorps for a year." So I did AmeriCorps in Boston for a year at 21 years old, and that was an eye-opening experience. And so that role really was. You had homelessness and you had mental health challenges, and the people that we were serving kind of came to the table with a whole host of challenges. The one pull through on all of it was everyone wanted a job. Every single person felt like a job was their ticket to
Right.
some sort of sustainable life. And that really, I think, was the pull. I was reflecting about it on the car ride down. That really was the pull towards workforce development, which was
Okay.
out of all of the things that we could be doing, what's the one thing that people really want to support their families? And that's work and the opportunities for work. So that really, I think, at 21, that was the eye-opening
Okay,
experience.
so then you go to Cornell and start studying.
Yeah,
the
2 years at Cornell.
policies
Yeah,
so on.
and I think that the Cornell role, the policies, really was this idea of I didn't want to be a social worker. Right? I had the heart of a social worker. I wanted to actually help those individuals who were coming in looking for services. This 20 years ago. I still remember their names and their faces in sort of a staggering kind of way. Still, those names and faces stick out to me. But I didn't want to do that full time, and it was just exhausting work even doing it for a year. So Cornell really was how do we affect change at a policy level? How do we think about investment in employment and training opportunities at a statewide or a national level? So that public administration degree was sort of that pathway towards how do we take this principle of everyone wants a job, how do we set up our regions in our country for good jobs, and then put some sort of higher level policy around that.
What ultimately got you to Pennsylvania?
Yeah, so this was 2010 when we moved down here.
So is your wife from where?
My wife's from New York City.
Okay.
So I was a country boy from Maine, married a girl from New York City. We've had a blast. We really have. So we moved down here for a whole host of reasons, outside of school and work.
Where'd you meet her at?
So we met at that first job in Boston, actually.
Okay,
Yeah, so we
okay.
met there. She was doing the same work at
Like
a different site.
AmeriCorps?
Yeah,
Okay.
AmeriCorps program. And again, I think that was that was the basis for us meeting and obviously falling in love. And that was coming up on 20 years ago. And so she followed me up to Cornell, and then followed me down here to Harrisburg. And so that really has been the pull line through.
But you came to Harrisburg, why?
Yeah, so interesting.
I'm gonna get to this answer.
So the pull for us really was our church community. So that was the big thing. We didn't have jobs and didn't have a place to live. So I was like, what's going to be the deciding factor around where we're going to move? And we had this group of people that we just became fast friends with and built sort of our life around service in that capacity. I'm not saying I would recommend that for everybody, but for us, it has been like beyond a shadow of a doubt, the best decision we ever made, because that ended up being the anchor point for our life. And so we raised our kids with these same people, and so we've been serving together with 15 years in that way. That really was the pull through for us was our community of faith, and I think what that's actually helped us, it orients everything that we do around why we're here and some of the values and principles that our family stands for. But it's been 15 years in. It's home now.
Yeah,
So,
that's great. Well, we're glad you made that decision, and we're glad you're here. So, tell us about SCPa Works and your role as CEO and the overall mission of the organization and the impact and the services it offers and the impact that it's providing.
So SCPa Works is a workforce development board. There are 500 workforce boards across the country, and they are essentially created to be investors and advancers and really kind of evaluators of workforce programs in a local region. So we, as a 501c3, exist to invest public, private, and philanthropic resources into the best training programs, helping people who are looking for a job or looking for the next job in their career, connecting them to the employment opportunities that are in the region, and ultimately looking at how do we drive economic mobility for all people and all businesses in a region. What I think is unique about it is while we get federal and state resources, we also get a lot of private resources as well. And the idea of a workforce board is we, in theory, will have our finger on the pulse of what's happening in the business community the most, right? So instead of policymakers in DC or even really in Harrisburg making decisions around where training dollars should go, workforce boards are the connector and the convener across the region. So we have great connections, obviously, with FCADC and other economic development organizations that, again, have their finger on the pulse. Who's hiring, what skills they're hiring for, what are the barriers to actually finding talent and connecting them to opportunities. We also have great partnerships with K through 12, community colleges, post-secondary. So we sort of exist in this many players at the table to help reduce some of the friction between employment and training opportunities. I think this goes back to those first jobs in Boston and sort of the career pathway that started, which is when we serve people at our PA Career Links, when we invest in resources across the region, all it takes is you see one person who comes in looking for a job. We're able to provide them the resources, the support, the information, in some cases even the training. They come back and see us. That's why we do our work.
Yep.
I mean, that's why. And those same individuals that we've served over has it been 10 years since I've been at this? I can still remember so many of the names and the faces of people that said, I was at my wit's end. You helped us. You helped my family get connected to a job, and that to me is the most valuable part of it.
No, there's no question, and to the folks in Boston that you met, and I think their ultimate goal is the goal of most people. They want a job. They want to be able to contribute. They want to have all the things that everybody has, and it starts with a job. And some folks have been placed in their life. They're just the nature of where they've lived, or their support network, which oftentimes did not exist.
Right.
But they're looking to be a part and to contribute to society. And what you're doing to help is absolutely essential. So with that, because you really do have a passion for this, but define, when we talk about South Central Pennsylvania and the services that are being offered through the Workforce Development Board in this area covered, define South Central Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so South Central Pennsylvania for our work is 8 counties. That's Juniata and Perry, Cumberland, Dauphin, and Lebanon, and then Adams, Franklin, and York along the southern border. We work with Lancaster a lot. They have their own great organization, their own workforce development board. We stretch into central Pennsylvania a little bit, just north of Juniata. But essentially, we're looking at the Harrisburg, York, Chambersburg, and even into sort of the Lebanon area of those metro areas. At about 1.5 million people, I think, in that region, and a labor force that's pushing 850,000.
I
So
don't
it's
think
pretty
people
good
realize
size. Yeah.
how large it is, and I mean we're essentially the equivalent of Allegheny County, which is Pittsburgh, and the surrounding area. And I don't think people recognize how large and how dynamic our region is. And part of it is we don't have that urban center that has the big skyscrapers. We don't have Pittsburgh. We don't have Philly. But this is really an area that has been growing, and the labor market has been a big part of the reason.
I think that is one of the reasons why this work remains so exciting to me, and I think why I'm still so passionate about it is, Philly, you mentioned Philly and Pittsburgh. Those are urban areas where there's been tremendous amount of investment, and the story of sort of their city centers or their development or redevelopment, I think, has been told pretty well. South Central Pennsylvania feels amorphous. It feels,
Right,
where
right.
are we? What's
Yep.
the thing? It's again hilarious having to describe this to family from my in-laws, family from New York City. It's like, where is, I live in Mechanicsburg.
Yeah,
They're like,
right.
Mechanicsburg? Where is that?
What
You
is
live-
it?
like,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
a bunch of mechanics that live there. So it becomes a little bit harder to define, but I think what's so exciting is when we look at the growth, the economic growth in Pennsylvania, certainly Philly and Pittsburgh are representing 2 anchor points in the East and West. But this, again, amorphous middle is actually where we're seeing lots of investment. The labor force continues to grow. Wages continue to grow. Unemployment rate is relatively low. And I think we're seeing the opportunity for growth continuing over the next 10 or 15 years. And we see it just, again, in the short time that we've been here. Not just housing values, but also the types of jobs that are available. So I think the growth story for us in this sort of amorphous South Central Pennsylvania region is still yet to be told. And I think when we look at that to me is really exciting. How do we shape these suburban or more rural areas of our country that are ripe for growth? And I think we see why that is such an important story to tell.
I mean, I'm a broken record on this because I would argue Pennsylvania as a state, to be very honest about it, we're a stagnant state in terms, comparatively speaking, to especially places like Florida and Texas, Virginia, and some others. But the growth that is, and there is opportunity and growth taking place, but I would argue just very simplistically, if you get on Interstate 81 at State Line here in Franklin County and drive to mile marker 89 and 11, so now we just traversed your region,
Whole region.
and then get on Interstate 78 down through the Lehigh Valley. That's the perimeter of essentially 15 counties that really drive the state's economy. And no disrespect to the folks in North Central or Southwestern or Northwestern Pennsylvania, but that's because there are other pockets, but they really are pockets. This is where the region is experiencing growth through South Central and Southeastern Pennsylvania, to include the Lehigh Valley.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think so then when you start layering in a lot of what I've been working on and what our organization has been working on is, so then how do we take a more of a forward-looking approach to what makes a region or multiple regions, sort of that 81 to 78 and Southeast, what will keep us competitive in the next 10 years? These questions don't have easy answers, but I think that as a thought experiment, it's what are the skills of a workforce? What are the needs of businesses? Where is investment going to happen? What about disruptive technology? I mean, it's the quintessential AI conversation. What makes a region competitive? Even the idea of diversifying across multiple sectors. Are we solely going to be manufacturing? Are we solely going to be logistics and warehousing? Or do we continue to invest in healthcare and tech jobs and those kinds of skills? I think those are the important things because the story to be told about growth is still, we're still writing it.
Right.
So the work that we're able to do around, if we were to invest over the next 10 years for our workforce to be stronger, to be more integrated with education and on-ramps and off-ramps, what would that look like? That's a lot of what we get to do, and that to me is
No, I agree.
work.
So let's talk about the labor market right now as you see it. Describe the current regional and labor environment in terms of workforce availability, skill sets. How does that match with employer needs, et cetera?
So I think as a whole, it's a labor market that is still relatively tight, and we define that as what's the available workforce for business need. And I think we saw a few years ago, post-COVID, some absolutely staggering statistics around 3 job openings for every 1 officially unemployed individual, right? And that is a mismatch of extreme labor market tightness that we've seen loosen up a little bit. But still, we're looking at 1.5 job openings for every 1 individual that's unemployed. That means as a whole, if a business wants to go out and hire 500 people, they're going to have to either create their own pipeline, steal from somebody, poach from somebody else, or somehow hope that there's going to be some sort of influx of people coming in from out of state, which is not representing the vast majority of labor market growth, right? So you still have a tightness there. I think what that does is it leads to this idea that generally wages have been going on an upward trend for the last 3 or 4 years, but on the whole, what we see coming sort of down the pike or on the horizon is the impact of uncertainty around Pennsylvania businesses, and I think South Central represents that well. Uncertainty is what will macroeconomic policy look like? What do we look at in terms of tariffs or taxes or some of these ideas of where and how are we actually going to invest in equipment or plants or other capital improvements? And because of that uncertainty, I think we're seeing a lot of businesses, this is the last 6 months or so, hold off on hiring or not replace headcount. We haven't seen huge job losses or job cuts, but I think there's been a general uncertainty that's kind of put the brakes a little bit on some of this unchecked growth that we saw from the past few years. So strong labor market, still really tight on the whole, but I think the uncertainty has caused some businesses to kind of pump the brakes a little bit.
What are the jobs in our region now most in demand? And I think a lot of listeners and viewers are going to want to know what are those jobs right now. Then we'll go to what you see in the future.
Yeah, so healthcare remains by and large, by all accounts, the most in demand and hardest to fill sector of jobs. And that would include everything from RNs, right? So nurses, all the way down to certified nursing assistants and some of the other medical assistants, sort of allied health roles. If you look at that as a sector, it is, the last I saw, almost double the next sector in terms of most unfilled positions right now. And some of the labor market data that we use is we look at all the job posts or job openings across the region, categorize them by sector, and healthcare is by far and away the most in demand.
I know, and talking to the folks at WellSpan, I mean, there's the constant need for nurses, both practical and RNs, but what they're looking for are more certified folks in diagnostic disciplines. That's a real need. Imaging is a big, huge need for them.
Diagnostics, imaging, some of the technicians or technologists, right? Rad tech is a big one. So you see that whole subset where a lot has been made of nurses and the nursing shortage, and I think that still is in play. But it's all of these other imaging, exactly. Diagnostics, rad tech.
It goes to food service. It goes to janitorial. There's a tremendous demand for workers in the healthcare sector. And along the lines of physicians, I know WellSpan is partnering over in the New York area on a medical school, I believe. And here in our area, Meredith Health in Hagerstown has just opened a osteopathic medical school, first medical school to open in Maryland in 100 years. But it's right in our backyard, and the idea is they're trying to essentially grow our own physician base, and hopefully by doing by educating and conferring, the doctor of osteopathic medicine on folks, that some of them are going to stay in the area.
I think there's really no easy solutions, right? So something like that will take multiple years to actually see the fruit of that in terms of a pipeline. However, if we don't start now,
Well,
we're only digging ourselves a larger hole.
First class opened in June, and what's amazing in this is this was an idea that was conceived 4 years ago, and they have gone from idea to building complete, housing done, and are fully accredited.
It's amazing, right? And I think it shows and it speaks to the urgency and the need for that type of investment
And the leadership
to it.
and the like. But again, so healthcare is one sector that is in where there are tremendous demand for employment.
Logistics, transportation is always going to be a big one.
And I know we've had that conversation when you look at what's the best use of our dollars to invest in training, and a lot of it comes back down to CDL drivers. In our region, there's a need for those folks.
It's
a huge need.
If you factor sort of healthcare writ large as the most in demand and hardest to fill set of occupations, CDL is always second or third on that list. I mean, they end up being in demand jobs. They're plentiful. They pay really well, and in many cases, for a lot of the people that we serve that have spotty work history, or they've had some engagement with the criminal justice system, there are jobs and occupations that we are trying to invest in and push people towards that are good jobs that can help support their family, that are plentiful, and CDL is a big one. So we end up spending a good amount of our resources helping to put people into CDL training. So that's a huge one, right? And then all of the auxiliary logistics and transportation jobs that are associated with that.
What about advanced manufacturing?
So manufacturing is, as we all know, it's part of our DNA. It's in our blood here in South Central PA. Manufacturing has changed a lot. So when we look at manufacturing as a whole, it still represents a really large, if not largest part of the regional GDP, like what we're actually producing of value. As our economy grows, manufacturing remains a big piece of that pie. The jobs themselves have changed a lot, and I think what we're trying to keep tabs on is how, again, manufacturing has gone from the old manual, dirty, dark, dangerous to more high tech. And I have to say, if you've got your finger on the pulse here, which I know you guys do, it's exciting to see some of these changes with automation and robotics. I am optimistic about where Pennsylvania is at in being able to ride this wave of sort of that fourth and fifth industrial wave of manufacturing, and having technology layered on that. I think we need to think through 10 years from now, we'll still be a manufacturing region, but what are the jobs, what are the occupations, what are the skill sets needed to...
Here's what I'm going to suggest to you, okay? Yeah. If you haven't done this, and he is an integral part of your board, is Andy Williford, who's who runs HR for Volvo Construction in North America, and he's one of the great people that you know. Arrange for a tour for yourself and your senior staff, in particular, to go tour the Volvo facility in Shippensburg. It is absolutely, it's as good as you're going to find anywhere in the United States of America. So I would suggest go down, and if you want to see the change in manufacturing, go see what they're...
Check out Andy and
check it out, and the investments that Volvo is making, because it is really... to say it's impressive is an understatement.
that's happening here.
Right now, 11 miles up the road from where we're sitting, it is here in Franklin County, and and it's part of our region.
Yeah.
But I would suggest take a ride, and 45 minutes you can be there with your team, and Andy would love to host you.
Yeah, that would be, and it's a reminder too of sort of these, I don't want to say hidden gems. I mean, it's not like Volvo is a
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's
company,
like,
right? But
like
it's
you never heard of them.
right. But it's in our backyard, and I think it's representative of the world-class investment that we've made and that companies have made here. And so I think that's and it's a great recommendation, by the way. I think the exciting part for me is seeing how we navigate some of these changes with technology and some of the disruption, right? And it's the what's coming down the horizon. But manufacturing represents, I think, an opportunity for us to see robotics, automation in real time, right? Because if we don't make those changes now, 10 years from now, I think a lot of that investment will pass us by.
No, I would agree. And the other thing, and again, to further the plug, I guess, for Volvo, is they're everything that we're trying to do as a workforce investment board. I mean, they're connected with education, they're connected with the community, they're connected with the career tech and so on, and they invest heavily in workforce development. And but again, but just to see the environment under which when you get there, it's like you don't want to go home. Literally, they have everything set up in their buildings that they'll service virtually every need that you have.
Yeah.
But it's really, but I encourage you to take your team down there.
That's a great recommendation.
And I think, as I said, it could be a one of the success stories for the region. And again, they're not the only ones, but they're ones that come to mind immediately.
They really are. And again, I'll share this because you said at the opening you were part of the selection committee that gave me the opportunity to be in this role, and Andy was too. And I don't know why I'm the face of workforce. Maybe do I have a face for podcasts? Is that what this is?
No. But the fact is, no. And again, I would encourage folks, especially the school districts and others who have a vested interest in education and workforce development. I think that having you come out and essentially, really, you are. This isn't theoretical in terms of what you're talking about. You're seeing it on the ground floor, and you're and you're at the heart of policies and decisions that are being made that are going to affect businesses across, and how education can tie into all of that. I think it's critical, and I think that you're very articulate when you speak about it, and I say that as a compliment to you. But I think you are the face and that's one of the things that we need. The other person I want to give a plug to while I'm doing this is the way the Workforce Development Board is structured. We have a board of directors, but there's also a second tier with the local elected officials. So each county, one of their commissioners has oversight of workforce development, and we're fortunate that Bob Ziobrowski, Commissioner Ziobrowski, chairs the local elected officials for the region, and he's been a strong advocate for all the things that you're trying to do.
I think, again, just the structure of the organization speaks to, I get to work with you guys here at FCADC, Andy at Volvo, Commissioner Ziobrowski has been a huge supporter and proponent of workforce development. And again, it's a cross-section of economic development and business and local elected officials that are making decisions that really affect the lives of all Pennsylvanians. So, it's multidisciplinary in the best way. One of my favorite books that I read in the last couple of years was David Epstein's Range, which is a great book about sort of the importance of pulling from all of these different disciplines and all of these different sort of backgrounds and having a synthesis of a variety of different sort of skill sets as opposed to being in one lane. And I feel like workforce development I feel like I lived that, and I've been living that book Range, in part because you've got guys like Commissioner Ziobrowski who have been great supporters and give a perspective of, from a local elected official standpoint, how workforce is helping to connect people to jobs, the decisions that are keeping him and the other commissioners up at night in terms of tax base and investment, economic development. So it really spans a huge range. I think that's why this work is so valuable.
So we're looking at healthcare, we're looking at logistics, we're looking at manufacturing as really the anchors of the jobs most in demand today. What do you see in the future, and how is AI going to impact the jobs of the future?
So I think one of the ways that I try to frame this up, and it's more of I think probably a personal anecdote, is so we have 4 young kids, and I think about our youngest, who is 2 years old, and what the labor market is going to look like when she enters the labor market in, let's say, at 22.
Good luck.
Right.
Good
Right.
luck.
20
Good luck forecasting that.
20 years. So it's a fool's errand to try to predict that. But I have to live this out in real time. And so what are the decisions over the next 3, 5, 10, 15 years to give, this next generation the best opportunity? It is an oversimplification, but Occam's razor sometimes is the simplest is the best solution. 2 words, durable and digital. Durable skills are going to be the people skills, collaboration, communication, work ethic, curiosity, lifelong learner, works well with others. And then the digital is how can we embed and infuse all of the learning and all of the sort of efforts to train this next generation around what we'd say STEM or engineering, math, science, technology, coding, knowing that those jobs are going to change 2 or 3 times over in 20 years. But the pull through would be, do you have the durable skills to be able to work? And then do you have the digital skills to be able to adapt, knowing that whatever we train, the next generation in will ultimately shift a couple times in terms of 20 years from now, right? So when I think about AI, I think about it from a standpoint of things are changing so rapidly. Whatever I say now, by the time this thing is actually released, will be out of date.
Mhm.
So the speed of change is happening so quickly. How can you even get your arms around it? It needs to be the ability to be agile, to be resilient, to be able to adapt quickly to what the labor market needs. And I think you're going to need that combination of digital and durable. AI conversation it's going to be so hard to predict. There will be disruption. There will be people that will lose their jobs because of AI or have a job that will not be replaced by a human. We're already seeing it. The wagon wheel repair person was displaced by the automobile industry. Net, when you look over the long term, the economy grew and was stronger because of the automobile industry. But for that subset of occupations, that was very disruptive and they were displaced. I think we're going to see in the short term a lot of disruption. Long term, I think we're going to see an economy that will somehow, as we always have, adapted to what the new AI economy is going to look like.
So what would your recommendation be to educators who are trying to put this in perspective and create curriculums what should their message be to their students?
I think without abandoning the principles of, I'm going to sound so old when I say this, reading, writing, and arithmetic, without abandoning the principles of reading well, writing well, and having strong math skills, some of the basics, the more we can bring experience and hands-on learning into the classroom, the better. And what I see is, despite all of the prognostication around AI, young people need to learn by experience, by putting it into practice, putting it, hands-on learning. And that includes in the classroom, and it includes out of the classroom. It's work experience. It's being able to put into practice what they're learning. I think that will be really important, just even taking AI. Right now, AI prompting is where a lot of us are interfacing with artificial intelligence. So it would be asking the right questions, providing the right parameters. But it might also be, I think, for a future generation of how we're actually building or how we're seeing the artificial intelligence machine learning on the factory floor. The more we're able to have hands-on experiential learning for young people, the better. So for an educator, I'm thinking, is this something that I can teach from a textbook? Or will, by the time I teach the digital skills from a textbook, it'll already be antiquated? Mm-hmm. So getting industry to say, we'll bring a classroom of juniors in high schools in and see what this looks like, to actually program the computer and put the robot on the factory floor, that I think is going to be one of the most critical parts of education. It's not an easy thing to do.
No, it isn't. But I think you are dead on with everything you say. So it's amazing that we're
up on the clock.
I'm looking at the clock. But so what's your advice? What's your takeaway? First of all, how do folks connect with you who are job seekers? Mm-hmm. How do employers connect with you? And what do you want as a takeaway here?
Yeah. South Central PA Works is scpaworks.org. It's probably the best website to find us. Getting connected to one of the Pennsylvania Career Links, which are one of our sort of retail storefronts where individuals across our region can come to us and looking for job or information about jobs available. Those are probably the best ways to get connected to us. I think the big takeaway is I am really optimistic about Pennsylvania as a whole and South Central Pennsylvania specifically for all the reasons that we mentioned. I'm also, with the sort of technology and tech disruption conversation, very bullish on humans, I guess. I think that there is
good.
for all of right.
Yeah.
If I wasn't, that would
No, that's great.
pretty
No,
apocalyptic,
that
but
message needs to be spread because there are people out there that think the AI revolution is going to be the downfall of anything we do as human beings.
I think it will. We would all agree it will change. We'll have to adapt, and
Right.
there will be some friction. And to be clear, there may even be friction for longer than we expect. But I'm very optimistic and very bullish on human beings needing to work and to live and to thrive. We will adapt. And I think that, to me, is an exciting thing when we think about education and workforce is how do we help our regions, communities, families, workers, businesses thrive? I think it's going to take, the big takeaway here is it's going to take a sense of agility and resiliency that we currently don't have in our institutions. That means everything from 4-year to K through 12. We have to get really good at pivoting quickly, making quick decisions, being agile, adapting to change. Right now, our institutions typically are a little bit slower. And I think that means business, workers, and the training and education institutions, we've got to get better at moving more quickly. But if we do that, I'm very, very optimistic about our region, economic growth, and ultimately humans at work thriving.
Yeah. I mean, if I could, we've used AI here for some of our day-to-day functions, from an administrative standpoint or with some technical writing or things like that. But it hasn't replaced the person, and it never will, because we as staff are still telling chat or whatever service you would use, we're putting parameters into it and then asking it to, solve a problem for us or help us solve a problem with inputs that we are still giving it. It's made us more efficient for sure, but it hasn't replaced us still needing to have the concepts in our head and the ability to do it.
And I'll go back to that plug for that book, Range. I think it's important too when we think about the generation up ahead is going to be really well read, be great at math and engineering, understand that at the end of the day we're still going to have to prompt AI to be able to do these things, and also nothing replaces what we're doing right here, which is human beings having a conversation, connecting over ideas that transcend zeros and ones. So I'm very optimistic about that.
Good.
Jesse, I appreciate you taking the time to come down.
Yeah.
I want to also put out, and hopefully for any of our school administrators, be it at the 6 public schools that serve Franklin County, Leslie Schumann, who is our director of our career tech, Wes Fugate, who's the president of Wilson College, Charles Patterson, who's the president of Shippensburg University. I encourage you for in-service days or just to have where you're having conversations about workforce development and preparing your students for the future. I'm going to put you out.
Love it.
Connect with Jesse McCree and let him come in and be part of that conversation. I think you will benefit from it. I think your teachers will benefit it, your instructors, and I just think it's a good conversation because it's critical as we move forward that we are educating and our students have the greatest opportunity to succeed in the future, and so we have to be adapting to the change that is upon us right now. So again, I appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Thanks, Mike.
This has been great, and so I look forward. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to serve. So with that,
Thanks again.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, Bosco.
We're good?
No, we're not done.
Okay,
done yet.
hold on.
Okay, hold on. Okay. Again, this concludes another episode of Mike on the Mic, our first of the year. This could arguably might be the best one we'll have all year.
You
so
say that.
I do.
I say that every episode.
No, I know, no, it is, but I think it's so important. What we just this conversation is important to everybody out there right now, and again, as we're attracting and retaining employment in the area, folks need to have every opportunity to succeed going forward. But
So,
let's go.
yes.
When you're thinking about insurance, who are you thinking about? We're going to segue right into our
Well,
sponsor here.
I think about insurance every 2 weeks when we do this podcast. It's Jeb Keller at Blue Ridge Risk Partners.
And Jeb, thank you for being our sponsors. It's from captive insurance and alternative risk solutions for your business to health insurance for your family. Blue Ridge Risk Partners offers the products, expertise, and services of a top 10 insurance agency right here in Franklin County. Friend of the podcast, Jeb Keller, is always happy to take your call.
All
so
right.
with that, thank you, and we're going to do this
we're
again
good.
in 2
Yep.
weeks.
All right.
thanks.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Mike.